loud.
Yep.
All right, so officially from here on out, everything that you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one will be appointed to you.
And no member.
Someone's been arrested.
That's why I moved into podcasting. It's a hell of a lot
Listen, we don't
safer.
talk about that.
What's up, and welcome to Retcon Air, the Plotline Repair Podcast. Like the name suggests, this is a podcast that takes a look at the plot lines of books, movies, video games, and even Broadway shows. Today, however, instead of breaking down a storyline, we're going to break apart a topic of far greater importance, gamer toxicity. And we're going to cover it in 3 different areas: social media, online gaming, and in person. We're also going to share a handful of stories about online toxicity in the gaming space that people have experienced. We'll end by discussing a few possible ways that we could start the process of fixing toxicity in the gaming space. To help me pull this off, Bryar and I will be joined by the hosts of the Color Me Geeked podcast, Sami and Jett. So if that sounds good to you, stick around as we break down gamer toxicity. So the first order of business is I'd like to thank each of you for coming on to, be a part of this topic, to actually talk about toxicity in gaming in general. So Sami, Jett, Bryar, thank each of you for coming on.
Finger guns.
Thank you for having us.
So obviously this is the first time that we've ever done a collaborative podcast, so you might hear us talk over each other a little bit. We're going to just figure out our way through that. But the topic is beefy enough to where I wanted multiple voices on this. You can see there's men and women on this podcast because a lot of the stories that I'm going to read in a second are from women, and I think having that opinion is really interesting, especially considering that there's 3 guys talking about our experiences. I think to balance it, to talk about the female experience is pretty good as well. We're going to have Shelby on this show, but unfortunately she's under the weather, so we hope that she has a speedy recovery. We're going to miss her on the show, but we're going to get through this anyway. So you know who I am, you know who Bryar is if you're into the show, but you probably don't know anything about Sami or Jett unless you're into their podcast. So if you two don't mind, why don't you take a few moments and just kind of talk about who you are, tell us some information about your podcast, maybe why you got started in the first place, and just really, tell us about you.
Hi. All right. So my name's Sami. I'm co-host of the Color Me Geeked podcast. So we really started this podcast because gaming brought us together as a couple and as friends. And so being able to take a passion that we have in this industry and make content for it is just something we've always wanted to do. So we kind of took the opportunity of the hellhole that is 2020 and decided to make it a little bit better place.
Fair enough.
Right on.
And then what about you, Jett?
I really can't say anything extra about that. So.
What's your background? So, I mean, we talked a little bit about off camera, like what you guys do for work. Are you comfortable talking about what you guys do, or do you want to keep that separate, or,
Yep. No, it's okay. I work for Best Buy currently. I don't speak for the brand of their company, but I'm currently a mobile sales rep. So I don't really get to talk games as much as I want, but with the mobile world coming into the gaming aspect of it, it's actually becoming more of my day-to-day life now.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm very excited. I'm very passionate.
My name's Jett. I work at GameStop, managed it for going on 11 years now. So this, especially this kind of podcast, is not the content we're talking about on this podcast is not new to me, unfortunately. I've worked there for 11 years. I've seen the ins and outs, the ups and the downs of the gaming industry, and like she said, just kind of wanted to do something different for 2020. And we thought, you know what? There's not a lot of couples out there that get their voices together for this, so we thought it'd be a cool little thing to do.
Absolutely.
I also told them this is what we're going to do, so that worked out.
Well, I was excited when you guys reached out wanting to do a collaboration episode. I thought it was a great idea. We were looking forward to doing that anyway, so it was a great opportunity to jump on. As far as work history, Bryar and I both hail from GameStop back in the old days. I put 3 years into it. Bryar, did you put 3 years in as well?
Roundabout.
Yeah. So I was hired in as a senior game advisor, worked my way up to an assistant. And then when I graduated college, I got the job that I have now as a videographer. Bryar, you worked there you started as a GA?
You hired me as a GA.
Yeah.
Because I remember I came in and asked for an application. You just slammed one down in front of me and told me to, and I quote, fill that bitch out.
Pretty much how I was hired too, actually.
When you spot talent, and you don't want it to get away.
And I remember I ran into our SL at the time late, like a week later. She's like, "Hey, you filled out an application, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Yeah. Devon wrote a note on that just says hire this MFer, so like right on.
And so I bring that up because, so we're going to talk about gamer toxicity. And I think if we were just people that played video games online, that would just be one element of the spectrum. But why I wanted to make sure that, Jett kind of jumped in, and I was glad that you guys were comfortable talking about that, is Jett has 11 years experience working for GameStop. Sami right now is working at Best Buy. Bryar and I have a lot of years of experience, not only working through, working at GameStop during Black Fridays and Christmas and stuff, but we've been a part of a console launch as well. The thing that's unfortunate, that Jett is going to have to go through again, and Sami is going to have to go through again, is how insane people become when supply doesn't meet demand. And toxicity is a huge conversation of that. So as much as we're going to talk about our experiences with gaming online, we're also going to talk about the in-person issues in addition to what people are talking about online and then playing online together. So let's get started. Let's talk about your stories that were shared with us. So when we were putting together some research, I wanted to make sure that in addition to our own experiences, I just wanted to solicit a bunch of feedback from the online community. So I reached out on Facebook in this PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 Facebook group, and I asked a pretty simple question, essentially two basic questions. Have you ever personally experienced online toxicity while gaming? If so, how, obviously? And then two, how would you combat that? Because that's pretty much it. If we're going to talk about the problem, I want to make sure that we carve out some time to talk about a solution. So I'm going to read a handful of these. Thank you, everybody that participated, jumped in, and gave some feedback. This first person goes by Chris, but they said that they can fix everything by just turning off your PC or console. So that's pretty straightforward, I guess. The first real one about your own personal experience with online gaming toxicity is from a lady named Angie. Try being a girl in the gaming community. Most guys just think we are noobs and trash, or they come on my Twitch asking for boobs and nudes, then crack jokes about women gaming, or getting these weird ass messages on PlayStation Network about rating boobs or just getting sent dick pics. So I'm not, this isn't a podcast that's going to split hairs or, kind of pull our punches. Like, this is the issues that we're talking about right now. Sami, have you dealt with any of that stuff at all or not really?
Oh yeah, hands down. Anytime. Really? So I don't really play online a lot. But in the few times that I've had, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with Finding Nemo, but anytime you hop on and they're like, girl, and then you start getting like,
I get that.
comments about like, suck my dick, go make me a sandwich. It's pretty consistent, and it's unfortunately something I've had to just get used to.
Yeah.
As a female in the gaming industry, but it's not even, female gamers make up, I think, like 45%.
Oh, damn.
So,
that's a lot more than I thought, actually.
It's a really high statistic, and it's really frustrating.
What we'll get into whys later on. I almost derailed this entire conversation and started going into why, but we'll get to the why later on. So let's keep on going. So Ray writes in, literally, I just left a Final Fantasy VII group because I was being harassed by a guy and getting unsolicited pics, and he kept trying to coerce me into calls. I blocked and reported him to the admin. He literally told me that's what boys do and to tolerate that. So that's an admin saying that's what boys do and to tolerate it. And then she keeps writing, it's really unfair, and a lot of the time women are just usually objectified in games, which I'm not mad about, but when they think it's okay to treat real women like that, it's disgusting. Unfortunately, it's normal in the gaming community. Matt writes in, I'm always amazed at Call of Duty. I never mute anyone, but it never fails if I forget or decide to actually try talking to people that it's nothing but racial slurs, name calling, and just being a jackass. Older sounding adults, but even those who are obviously young kids talking the same way. It's insane. I'd throw my son's TV out the window if I ever heard him say anything close to what those kids say. Which is a good point. I mean, Bryar and I both have kids. If I ever came downstairs and I heard my daughter, or, as my son gets older, like I lose my mind. I don't know if I would break something because obviously I paid for it, but I definitely take it away. Dominic writes in, I think that online gaming has to have a certain amount of trash talk. I don't even get upset when with people if they are a little over the top. And for the people who go to the extreme and spew out crazy racism and threats, I just block them or mute them. It's pretty straightforward, which is pretty much the easiest fix. I mean, like that one guy wrote in, a lot of people will go into a lobby and just mute everybody. I've been doing that more and more in Red Dead Online, because I don't know if you guys have played Red Dead Redemption Online recently, but it's kind of a dumpster fire. Let's see. Issaic writes in, I grew up with Black Ops 1, hadn't heard or seen Jack, but if you haven't experienced it, and Modern Warfare 2 lobbies, gotta have balls of steel and gotta know hardcore shit talk, then you get respected. So I think what Issaic is saying, that there's certain games where if you're going to come at him, you got to come correct or you're going to get eaten alive. So that's pretty much it. So those are real people. I didn't make any of that shit up. I just simply asked for people to tell me some of their experiences, and that's a lot. So those are from the online community. Sammy shared some of hers. So Jett and Bryar, do you guys have any experiences yourselves about either having somebody be a total douche to you, or being in a lobby where somebody was being a douche to somebody else, or even something that you might even regret if you were in a fit of rage and maybe went a little harder than you thought?
For sure.
Go for it, Bryar.
I mean, and I'll touch on it more when we get to my segment later, but I mean, yeah, I've been told so much. My favorite is constantly being told to go kill myself anytime I don't get enough kills in the match.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's that. Usually just a lot of 12-year-olds being really mean.
You've been watching too much South Park.
Yeah, that is, when I was in the same area you guys were with the 360 in Black Ops and COD and stuff like that. A couple of them that distinctly remember me. I've got a buddy of mine, and the group that I played with, especially in Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2, was definitely a diverse group. We had, Hispanics, we had blacks, people of color, to be correct there. And as soon as their mics would be unmuted, you would hear the racial slurs going on. Because there's the different dialects we all kind of speak in, and as soon as those were done, you would just hear them, these kids lipping off and saying some of the most vulgar stuff. And we didn't play with women at the time. It's just because we didn't at that time. But just for them alone, you would feel so bad that these people that would have no clue who you are, what you do for a living, their first response is to, N-word this, go kill yourself, or calling them buddy of mine a wetback to go build their fence or go clean their garden up and stuff like that. It was just appalling.
Yeah,
Or
ridiculous.
they need to get back to Home Depot.
Yeah, back to Home Depot. You're just like, what the hell, guys?
Yeah.
And it's always really young kids too. Again, I'm going to keep saying it. It's always what sounds like 12 to 15-year-old kids out there. I'm like, God, where? I've heard recordings online of kids just going hard, throwing the racial slurs, MF and this and F that, and then you hear their mom come in the background and start tearing them a new one.
I've never got to hear that live, but man, I've
That's
always
the thing.
wanted to.
I've never heard it live. Always wanted to.
It'd be the best. Maybe one day. If I could wish for one thing before I died, it would be to listen to a 13-year-old kid lose his mind, and then his mom would come just beat his ass on air. That would just be my favorite thing.
So great.
I'll just pull the slipper off and just go.
Yeah,
to town.
you hear the thwapping of the slipper on her, and then all of a sudden you just see person disconnected, and you're like, yes, justice. I hope that somebody
Get on
just pulled the
TikTok
cable.
if you want to see that. Hands down.
Nice. I'm gonna have to go into a rabbit hole after this. For me, I don't know. I'm not that aggressive of a person. I can get mad or whatever, but for the most part, I generally enjoy playing online unless I'm in a pissy mood or whatever. But there's been a couple of times on Rocket League where people have literally asked for my address so they can come and fight me in person, and I'm sitting there we're playing Rocket League. The game that we're playing is a car that has rocket boosters and a soccer ball that's oversized, bigger than all of our cars, and we can kind of fly around. How are you so upset over this game that you're going to the point where you're trying to get my home address? It's just it's insane. It's insane how quickly, and maybe it's the age thing. Maybe it's just the fact that the young mind of a person who doesn't have a great grip on emotional control or whatever is just completely untethered and can just go as hard as they want to in an online space without any fear of repercussion or reprisal. But maybe that's part of it. It's just the safety of knowing they're online and their mom is downstairs or at work or stripping, whatever their mom's doing. Who knows why people have broken homes. But it's just frustrating. It is really, really frustrating. So, those stories were heartbreaking. Our stories, were unfortunate. But what I know is that we're going to talk about this and we're going to be able to try to maybe make a couple things that we can do differently to maybe do this a little bit better. So
I will say too,
yeah, go ahead.
real quick, the only time I ever play online anymore, if I have a headset on, I'm in a party and I have everything set to prioritize party chat over game chat, so I don't hear people anymore.
That's a good point. Do you guys usually ever just join online matches and just talk to whomever is in there?
No, it's private chat anymore.
Avengers has kind of forced my hand on that, because if you join online, you're thrown into a party of four, and Marvel's Avengers is super cooperative, so you almost need to. But a lot of the time, I regret it the second I get there. It's the worst.
You're loving Marvel
Dumb,
Adventures.
It's so good. Are you playing on PlayStation 4?
Yep.
So we'll talk later, and we'll
Yeah.
exchange PlayStation names.
Sounds good.